I don't know why they come to Mass at all or why they keep coming back, but I have some speculations to offer about why they seem to be so miserable at Mass. In brief, they resent God. They don't like anyone making any kind of claim upon them, and especially not God. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the 25th celebration of the Station of the Cross is coming up in Niagara Falls in August the 24th. Father Robert McTeigue is going to be there. He is our host of our program called The Catholic Current, which you can hear 5 p.m. Eastern all across the network right here. You can catch the podcast of it as well. Go to thestationofthecross.com. We're going to put a link to it in the show notes for you. But not only is he coming to the big conference and the VIP dinner in Niagara Falls, which, by the way, we'd love for you to be there. Candace Owens is coming. Bishop Strickland is coming. Raymond Arroyo, Mother Miriam, myself, Jim Havens. Even producer Jake is coming. So we want you to be there. Go to thestationofthecross.com. Click that banner for the details and to get registered today. But he's also got an article out over at Crisis Magazine. The headline says, "Why do Mass-going Catholics resent God?" Let that sink in just for a second. Many congregants arrive late, are dressed inappropriately, do not sing the hymns, become lifeless during the homily, receive Holy Communion indifferently, and then scramble to the exits at the first opportunity. So why do Mass-going Catholics resent God? That's the question Father McTeigue is asking. Let me read this to you. I think it's fascinating. Imagine receiving this text message from a priest on a Sunday night. Quote, "I'm becoming more convinced that people resent having God in their lives at all. They resent their Sunday obligation, and they believe that somehow it's my fault that they have to be at Mass. Anything that slows down the distribution of Holy Communion, the reception of which entitles congregants to make a hasty exit from their reviled place of confinement, just prolongs their inconvenience and heightens their indignation. Meanwhile, they have no idea what's coming, and they won't give me a chance to tell them." Close quote. Father asks, how would you respond to Father's message? Before you answer, let me offer you some common but inadequate replies and explain why they are inadequate. Number one, at least they're coming to Mass, Father. Is that really enough? Without any prejudice to the justice of their Sunday obligation, is it really enough for them to arrive late, sulk, and smolder throughout Mass and then leave early? Is it good for their souls for them to do that week after week for years and decades? Reply number two. You have to meet people where they're at, Father. This is the favorite maxim of Father Cheerful, the pastor of St. Typicals, where meeting people where they are at is, in practice, means offering them no invitation to spiritual and moral maturity. Father Cheerful makes his pronouncement as if he said something profound, thereby providing that he doesn't think through what he says. Where else could one meet the people except where they are at? They're not anywhere else. But as far as any observer can tell, Father Cheerful has no plan for the people he's meeting except to take up a collection from them. Point number three. You sound very judgy, Father. Oh, my goodness. I certainly hope so. By virtue of my ordination, I share in Christ's priestly ministry to teach, to sanctify, and to govern. The church spent a lot of time and money cultivating a habit of good judgment in me. If I don't make moral evaluations, if I don't draw conclusions and offer advice, exhortations, and commands based on what I see and what Christ has revealed, then I have failed as a priest. Oh man, is that good or not? That's some good Father McTeigue right there. I love that. He goes on. So what are some of the more serious, less easy to dismiss explanations for why these manifestly unhappy and resentful people are showing up for Mass on Sunday? These suggestions have been offered to me by people I trust and respect. Recently, I have started to see their explanations as inadequate too. Number one, they go to Mass for cover your apocalypse. Going to church on Sunday is minimum payment, minimum coverage, anti-hell insurance. Kind of what we talked about in the gospel commentary today. He goes on, he says, that used to make a lot of sense to me. Nowadays, not so much. When was the last time these folks who drag themselves into church 10 minutes after Mass has begun heard any preaching about sin, judgment, damnation, or hell? When was the last time that they went to a funeral and were exhorted to pray for the salvation of the deceased? Isn't it much more likely nowadays that they went to a funeral, redescribed as a celebration of life, where they were confidently told that grandma is in heaven now? Number 2, they show up on Sunday for the fellowship. People are so lonely and isolated during the week. Sunday Mass is a time to meet up with like-minded people. Maybe for a few people that's true, but that explanation doesn't comfort well the reports I hear from priests all over the country. According to them, not only are most people only too glad to get away from any reminder of the God with whom they have just communed, they are even more eager to get away from their brothers and sisters in Christ whom they had not only recently with gusto exchanged a sign of peace. These folks stampede toward the parking lot as if they were moving to a lifeboat on a sinking ship being boarded by flesh-eating zombies. They have no interest in fellowship. The message from a priest above is actually a synthesis of many messages I have received from a large number of priests over the past several years. In brief, these priests observe that most of their Sunday congregants arrive late, are dressed inappropriately, do not sing the hymns, and do not respond to the Mass parts because they've become lifeless during the homily, receive Holy Communion indifferently, if not outright irreverently, and then scramble to the exits at the first opportunity. I don't know why they come to Mass at all or why they keep coming back, but I have some speculations to offer about why they seem to be so miserable at Mass and why they are so desperate to get away from God. In brief, they resent God. They don't like anyone making any kind of claim upon them, and especially not God. You see, God might actually have a legitimate claim on them, and they find that intolerable. We sinners hate the idea of being creatures dependent upon and accountable to a creator God. All that goes against the grain of our sinful selfishness, and if you want to get people really annoyed with you, start poking at their sinful selfishness. Parents know that once a toddler starts screaming, "Mine!" their journey suddenly becomes permanently an uphill one. We foolish sinners speak of my life, my time, as if we gave ourselves those gifts. And they're not really gifts because we deserve our 24 hours a day and our lifespan. A moment's examination would reveal those claims to be the nonsense that they are, which is why we sinners assiduously avoid such things as silence, which would facilitate such unwelcome examinations. Sunday Masses, even Saturday Sunday Masses, represent an intrusion upon my time and my life. But it's worse than that. Oh, much worse. Even the most uncatechized Christian has some awareness that God has a terrible potential for being a real buzzkill. That pesky sixth commandment, with all the sexual prohibitions that it entails, just gets in the way of us getting what we want, which, of course, is sex on our own terms and without consequence. I might add Republican conservative Senator Ted Cruz's IVF on demand, required by law. Let that sink in. Father McTeigue goes on, sitting in church on Sunday is a subtle reminder that we are playing by our rules and not his. And we don't like to be reminded of our disobedience. Moreover, there is the unpleasant matter of the fifth commandment. One of the possible consequences of sex is offspring, a fact that we sinners are determined to treat as a bug and not as a feature. The prohibition against murder gets in the way of our getting rid of the unwelcome consequences of our sexual actions. Not only that, the fifth commandment gets in the way of our getting out of the way anyone who is in our way. If not by outright murder, then by contempt, slander, lawfare, and legislation. In short, people visibly disdain being at Mass because they have some sense, however vague, that they are in the presence of God, who offers them nothing that they want and would deprive them of what they do want. Why do they keep coming back to Mass then? I don't know. I do know that passing over in silence for weeks and months and years their manifest resentment of God at Mass is not good for their souls. I know that when Father Stifled, the parochial vicar of St. Typicals, is forced implicitly and explicitly by the pastor, Father Cheerful, to not act upon what is seen at Mass and just take up the collection, then Father Stifled dies a bit inside each Sunday. He begins to develop slowly but steadily a self-loathing as he sees by his weekly complicit silence that he doesn't sufficiently love Christ, or that people Christ entrusted to his care to actually speak up on behalf of Christ and on theirs. No one, absolutely no one, benefits from pretending that the good enough Mass at St. Typicals is actually good enough for anyone, certainly not for the Typicans. What's the solution then? Again, I'm more confident about the negative than the positive. I know that cheerful, enthusiastic statements and gestures under the banner of revival will not change much at St. Typicals. I know that more of the same at St. Typicals will not suddenly start doing anyone any good. So what then? He says, if we emphasize worship as sacrifice and as a remedy for sin, if we emphasize spiritual struggle and combat as essential preparations for eternity, if we taught people to pray so that they and their loved ones would not become food for the devil, that just might work, and I have it on good authority that it worked in the past. But that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Father Robert McTeigue. Fire! Love it. I'll link to it in the show notes. Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.